Polk. Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you so very much for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the streaming, including Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the social media streaming, I should say, because we're audio streaming a lot of places, but Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Find us in a lot of places in a lot of different ways, usually under one of those two names, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. That's the way we put it up anyway. And if you want to, that's one way you can tune in, see our full video stream, because, in case I haven't explained it lately, we do this whole, interactive thing, along with comments that can happen over there, and putting up video and pictures. If you haven't tuned into the El Paso History Radio Show, I'm on the back end of that one, and I can do a little bit more with it. But we do our fair share on this program because, particularly for today, we're going to be talking about economic destiny of our region, or at the very least in the short term, what might be coming and the trends we're looking at, what it might mean for us generally here in the region as we're responding to overall trends, national things. One factor we didn't talk about yesterday in the whole supply chain issues is skimp-flation. But so with all of that, the manufacturing, the movement happening, what's going on with housing, all of that, what is the outlook coming up for our region in the near term, about the next year? Because, heck, even trying to forecast the next year kind of been like saying, we'll have clear skies tomorrow and then there being a tornado. So it's been a little bit unsettled, more than a little bit unsettled. But we can hopefully find out a little bit of insight on what are some of the overall factors, outside of any black swan events. Again, I'd really like to stop living through unprecedented historical times, please. But in the meantime, we'll keep talking about it. So we're going to be having on the professors Fullerton, Tom and Stephen Fullerton, to talk about it, as we have Leroy Chuck and John Hertz chiming in here already over on the social pages. Again, one of the better ways you can do so throughout the broadcast is chiming in over there, because we take those comments. The Skeptic Squad is alive and well, particularly over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. But we'll get into it, and we get some interesting comments over there, share some of them on air. So if you're driving, please continue driving, eyes on the road, and we'll have to take calls a little bit later in the program if you can, again, do so safely. But otherwise, just keep your eyes on the road. It's an interesting time out there. The sky was looking beautiful, but that is going to mean some interesting conditions coming up in the near term of our actual, literal weather forecast coming up here. So one thing I wanted to mention is something that has been brewing for a minute is another round of redistricting, and I'm not talking about anything national or even statewide, but locally. Now, the city of El Paso just announced that they are holding more meetings coming up for the 2022 redistricting process. They had kind of done a set towards the end of last year and hadn't put up the new schedule until finally announcing it yesterday. So they will be having these in person and then one hybrid meeting and one completely virtual meeting coming up here. But starting on Monday, January 24th at the Westside Regional Command Center at 4801 Osborne, they will be having the meeting to have input on the redistricting process. Now, there is at least one draft map that is out there right now that essentially, the best way I could describe it is a consolidation of the city council redistricting maps. If you've ever been a nerd like me and really looked up what the maps look at, they're a little bit stringy, a little bit cutouts, and a little bit not totally compact. And the way that it is being looked at least currently, we still got the rest of this process to go through. Nothing is set in stone until city council eventually takes the recommendation of this redistricting committee and then votes on it. And we'll definitely have that up for you when it's coming on. But at the moment, there are meetings going through early February at this point. So that is probably the earliest that there could potentially be a vote. But if you want to find out more for yourself, elpasotexas.gov/shapeep is the website where you can see all the detailed information so far. So once we get a little bit further along, again, a early proposal of a map is out there, but once we get a little bit closer to an actual vote, we'll see what it is. Leroy Chuck letting us know his heater went out a week ago, and the repair guy said that heating parts have doubled in price. Thanks, inflation. Yeah, that's a special one. My car has been the closest example I have had to deal with personally because of, it's got damage to it, and makes me self-conscious driving around. in it because, well, it looks like I'm one of those people who, like, I'm just this side of having the wrong panel car on it kind of situation, which is not a great look. It's damaged right now, so I'm not sure if it's any better that way, but we literally can't get the part in to fix it. So you have a worse situation. Your heater in your house being out, I do not envy you that, but I kind of feel a little bit of your pain. It's like I stubbed my toe when you broke a leg, so I can totally commiserate. I mean, it's so functional, but yeah, that inflation. But so one of the other factors that I kind of realized we didn't really talk about yesterday is another added little, just, little special pile of, well, I can't say what I think it is, but that comes, Kevin Wells let us know he's driving. Yes, thank you for keeping your eyes on the road. As John Browston also chimes in with Leroy Chuck saying, no thanks, Biden. Again, whatever is the actual situation, if there isn't something done by this administration in a whole lot of ways, or at least a monumental effort that they can say, well, it just didn't quite work out. And even then, you're still going to see some taking it in the shorts. But skimp-flation is one of those. You may have heard the phrase. I've heard it first time, several months ago before the new year for sure. And that is the concept that given some particularly high dollar things and things that are like services and packages and in that kind of realm, like, a bare hot dog, you might just see regular inflation. But imagine that if with that hot dog, you would usually expect to get like sides, condiments, things to put on it. And now as part of that, those are no longer available. That is the example of the concept of skimp-flation. So that even if the price didn't necessarily absolutely rise for something like a hot dog, let's just stick for the example for now, if you can no longer get the sides or the condiments that go with it, heck, not even like the napkin, if all of that is either no longer available or has an extra charge, it's not strictly speaking a inflation increase, but you are going to end up spending more money on it. You can more broadly see it in things like plane tickets, amenities going down. The last couple of flights I had, one had a drink service, one did not. And that was kind of a little like weird, like not even the, basic, you want a water bottle or something, a soda, that kind of thing wasn't even available. So that is an example of skimp-flation, basically meaning that they're skimping on services, even if they're probably charging you the same amount coming along with it. Kind of be everything from, God, we ended up having a delayed flight, and I was trying to figure out what was delayed into the wee hours of the morning, and I was trying to figure out what could happen with our next flight, and I was literally able to find more information searching myself online about the status of flights than the person on the other end of the line was able to tell me when I tried to call after being on hold for a long while, of what the heck is going on with this flight. Are the pilots going to have to, be done for the day due to regulations on that kind of thing? Literally no information. So I'm not sure if that's a perfect example of skimp-flation, but I have a sneaking suspicion that might be the way things are going in the near term. So skimp-flation, another one of those fun little phrases that I hadn't heard before and have come to hate in the advent of the modern realm, because it means that, sure, again, you have it on your balance sheet that the hot dog costs the same, absolutely, as the individual unit, but the things that come with it are just not there. It can range from everything from, well, it's just not as satisfying, so maybe you end up getting more, or it could be that you end up spending more overall in order to replace what you've essentially lost with it. So that is another fun factor that's harder to pin down, but I'm sure y'all can probably examine for yourselves some examples that you've seen within your own lives. Again, stuff like services such as getting your stuff repaired, or larger things, booking things, planning things out, just end up being more absolute costs coming along with them, along with little surcharges and fees, that kind of thing. So skimp-flation is another just fun little wriggle of awfulness in this whole situation. But coming up in this next segment and in a little bit later in the program, are going to be talking further about the total economic outlook for our region, because there are a lot of factors going into it, even as we're still dealing with a whole lot of other issues. What is going on and can be sourced here locally, and the impacts we're going to be seeing over better part of the next year, even though the further out you get, particularly lately, the cloudier the crystal ball and the more unsettled the tea leaves get. There are factors that can be looked at, and some things on the horizon that, well, we got graphs and such that we will use to illustrate the concept. So we're going to take that first break of the hour here right now. You are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming up shortly, Going to be talking with the professors Fullerton about their work on that subject, about the economic forecast, what can be done at this point, and what it means for you and me. So stay tuned. More after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Lots of accidents on your Tuesday. Let's go. I-10 westbound crash at Mesa Street, Highway 20, right lane, right shoulder block, and the backup extends to before Sunland Park. I-10 westbound at Red, another injury accident, and partially blocking the ramp. I-10 eastbound at Cotton, accident there blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Padres, that accident has cleared, no longer a backup. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Win $1,000.
No way. No way. No way.
Oh, baby. Yes way.
No way.
It's a grand in your hand. Listen every hour from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win.
A grand in your hand is brought to you by Approved Autos. Drive out in your new ride in less than an hour. Choose from every make and model from their super clean, hand-picked inventory and get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Autos, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
Conquer your New Year's resolution to be more productive with the Before Breakfast podcast. In each bite-sized daily episode, time management and productivity expert Laura Vanderkam teaches you how to make the most of your time, both at work and at home. These are the practical suggestions you need to get more done with your day.
Just as lifting weights keeps our bodies strong as we age, learning new skills is the mental equivalent of pumping iron.
Listen to Before Breakfast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Being a real estate agent isn't about listing houses. It's about connecting to people. I need to find new buyers every day. So I promote my listings using radio commercials from iHeartAdBuilder.com. Now every time I have an open house, it's a full house.
A custom radio ad from iHeartAdBuilder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can interact with the show right now: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, where we are live streaming with video. One of the better ways, because you can leave your comments throughout, as we have a Calvin Williams, John Brazelton, Leroy Chuck, and John Hertz tuning in and chiming in right now. And we'll open up the phone lines a little bit later in the show, as we have been doing on the balance, usually probably at the end of the third segment. So the next one, we will start opening up those phone lines at the end of it. But plenty to talk about in the meantime. Some of those developing factors that we got going on economically and politically. Again, redistricting is coming up for city council. So if you think you know who you'll be voting for in this next one, you might want to double check, get involved in those meetings. Again, elpasotexas.gov/ShapeEP is where you can learn about the city's districting commission. The final map will be actually submitted July 2022. So got that to look forward middle of this year. So if you want to see those meetings, there's a number of them going on. But to the economic factors now, as we've been talking about. Talked a lot about supply chain issues yesterday and all the ways that have been affecting us, both in terms of goods, services, personnel, workforce, all that fun stuff. But to get a little bit broader but still specific of a view, are joined now by UTEP Professor of Economics Tom Fullerton. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Andrew, good to see you.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back in the studio here. I'd like to check in with you on these economic factors because it has been, well, black swan is a phrase that a lot of people may not have heard of before last couple of years, but may have become more familiar with. And forecasting around that, well, we got some graphs and charts we'll show you out of your most recent Borderplex business barometer, which is part of your overall project that you do to do best modeling of what are the factors that are developing within our region, right?
That's correct. The Borderplex Business Barometer is a report that we put out once every month. And let's see, it includes, a brief summary of different topics at the beginning of the report. And then we provide a lot of graphical material in there that, allows business people, households, government policy analysts to monitor exactly what is transpiring and the type of things that affect local economic conditions.
And that has been always an important thing, and always a little bit kind of like eating the elephant, given the amount of information you look at. You do it one bite at a time because that's what you just have to do to get through all the information. But it's made, again, particularly difficult over these last couple of years because of things that just, in the short term, as you were getting up closer and closer to, say, March 2020, you probably could have gotten a little bit more expectation of this is coming. But end of 2019 or 2018, it would have been very difficult to known exactly what was going to be happening at this point. So that's why in this kind of barometer that you do this short-ish term report as opposed to some of your more longer-term ones, looking at the kind of immediate future factors that are already pretty much in hand or coming soon into hand, right?
That's correct. And in terms of pandemic, nobody that I know of anticipated it back in December of 2019 for the simple reason that it was already unleashed in China. And the Chinese government kept it a secret. Yeah. And so they denied there was even a pandemic going on. And so it really caught everybody by surprise, especially Western Europe. They got hammered a lot earlier than we did, and they got hammered a lot harder than we did. And it just put human capital at risk throughout the world, including the Borderplex.
But the only one that came out of good of that situation in a own just kind of fluke of, decent planning with insurance was Wimbledon, actually, is the one that sticks with me because they had insurance that happened to cover that specific kind of thing. So they actually came out ahead for, 2020 anyway. I'm pretty sure they had their policy no longer able to be in place for 2021. But still, there were, probably seen before that point as overly cautious planning and then probably hailed as geniuses kind of planning after they went into place. But that's just the one that has stuck with me. So when we're talking about locally, about where we stand, kind of the report being compiled towards the end of 2021, as you do, some interesting factors going on with it. One thing we were talking about yesterday as part of the kind of general issue of supply was human capital, as you just said, that a lot of, particularly like food service industry, restaurants have been having a serious problem getting people on board. I haven't thought of a restaurant, I can't think of a restaurant that has not had a "we are hiring" sign out at locally based ones. Well, all of them really. Signs saying "we are hiring," we want people to be hired, and putting even on there, the starting rates on it, which you didn't necessarily used to see. But that is then an interesting compound factor with what one of the major factors you look at right top of the report, and we got the image up on screen right now. What is going on with the unemployment rate in El Paso that we have essentially not quite gotten to pre-2020 levels, but it's getting closer. It has been dipping downward past the mountain that people can see that happened right as all the closures happened in 2020. But given the factor of the combination of those, that is a very interesting one going forward because it's not, there's the anecdotal no one wants to work anymore. But when it goes into that, one of the things that I always think about is that unemployment is a workforce measure, not an absolute population measure. So when we're looking at that unemployment rate as it being low, is this because people have more or less been getting work, or maybe when it comes to the food service, transitioning out of that industry, or are there more people that have dropped out of the workforce?
It's a combination of both. One, the demand for labor is very strong. And of course, it's probably strongest in the restaurant sector. The restaurant sector in 2022 in El Paso reminds me of the Maquiladora industrial parks in Ciudad Juarez in 1998. If you remember back then, there were help wanted banners flying all over, those industrial parks, and there was rapid turnover, and people, would get upset with work conditions, and they would just leave, from one day to the next. Well, now, fast forward to 2022, and we're observing something very similar in the restaurant sector here in El Paso.
Mhm.
Normally, that doesn't occur. In fact, I can't think of really any other period in U.S. economic history when that's been going on. But El Paso is in the same boat as a lot of other cities throughout the country. In fact, I think it's most other cities throughout the country. So the demand for labor is strong, but there have been two things that have affected labor force participation in a negative manner, as your question alluded to. One is that a lot of people that would be working are hesitant to work. And they're hesitant to work with good reason. There have been multiple waves and different variants of the novel coronavirus that sweep through the U.S. economy and have caused a lot of illnesses, a lot of hospitalizations, and a lot of fatalities. And so people that either have health conditions themselves or they have people in their households who have health conditions, they're really nervous about going out to work because there were so many people during the summer of 2020 that died either because they were infected themselves or they infected somebody else. And it really was, a tragic situation. And so people are understandably careful about going into jobs where they're going to come into a lot of contact with the public, as in the restaurant sector. The other thing that's going on is that a lot of people, baby boomers essentially, who were getting close to retirement have decided to go ahead and retire, even if they might have planned to work several more years. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the tipping point for them, and they have withdrawn from the labor force. So both, I'll inflict a little economics and mathematics on your listeners this afternoon. Both the numerator and the denominator have been affected by what's transpired during the last 20 months.
So to a question that Louis Pinato put a little indelicately, and I'm going to paraphrase here, how can the unemployment be looking similar or approaching similar levels if there are so many fewer businesses, he alludes to, but also the demand that we're hearing about? It's because unemployment rates, they only count people actively participating. So if people are saying, I'm not even looking for a job anymore, they have fallen out of the quote unquote workforce as stats and, factors are measured in this country.
That's exactly right. I couldn't say it any better myself. Andrew, you're in the wrong profession. You ought to be an economist like me.
I did study economics undergrad, but not enough to do anything with it. So it gives me some proficiency with talking about these things. But there are other factors to look at here. We jumped the gun a little bit here talking about this. In general, the forecast, you have a lot of data that goes into it. I mean, pages of charts and data that go along with this. What is the kind of, if you had to put a pin in it, overall focus of what's going to be happening as best you can tell over the next year?
Well, the number one risk we face in terms of our Borderplex economic outlook to 2023, which, is getting close to being released, is what's going to go on this year with the U.S. economy. And if the U.S. economy avoids a recession, then the Borderplex regional growth rate is going to be pretty solid. On the other hand, there are a lot of risks out there. And if the U.S. economy topples into a recession due to any number of risk factors, then our projections could end up being entirely too optimistic.
Yeah, that is entirely possible here. So this particular report that you got right out now is kind of a snapshot, short-term release. You do this quarterly, right?
We do our barometer every month, and then we do our economic outlook. We do it once a year.
Okay, so we got a breakdown. So this one will be updated shortly, and then the one coming out here, when are you looking at the overall regional forecasting model about that report coming out?
It's at the printers right now, but economics reports don't always end up at the top of the queue for some mysterious reason.
Yeah, I actually was looking at it as we were getting some of the graphics ready for today, that only about 78 people have downloaded that report currently for this month. So a lot more that can be investigated and a lot more knowledge that can be had about this. But we'll get into that here more. Again, guest right now is Professor Tom Fullerton of economics at UTEP. So we got to take that break now here, but we're going to come back, talk more about some of the factors, and really one interesting factor for me, what may be going on with the maquila industry. We'll delve a little bit more into that. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of stuff we'll talk about here, and a lot of interesting questions already coming. Get to some of that. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. People continue to get infected with the Omicron variant in the borderland and across the country. Now, one of the country's top health officials hopes this variant could lead to the end of the pandemic. The word pandemic has been part of our daily lives since March 2020. The Omicron variant is quickly spreading, not only in the borderland, but all over the country and the world. CNN is now reporting the nation's leading disease doctor believes the rapidly spreading variant could have the COVID-19 pandemic turn into an endemic, which is when a disease is regularly found in a population but doesn't affect a large number of people or disrupt society as typically seen in a pandemic. Hospitalizations and deaths in El Paso are not as severe as they were when city officials reported similar numbers at the beginning of the pandemic. Both Dr. Fauci and local health authority Dr. Hector Ocaranza still caution about possible new COVID-19 variants that could come. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got a new injury accident, Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo. You could exit the I-10 earlier at Trowbridge and avoid the slowing. I-10 westbound at Red. That's an injury accident at the Red exit ramp. I-10 eastbound at Cotton. Accident blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. And you got slow and go traffic on Artcraft between Doniphan and the I-10. About 5-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We'll be in and out of some clouds over the next few days, along with increasing winds and temperatures remaining in the 60s. We'll talk about breezy to windy weather for your Tuesday, plus a change in the pattern that brings rain and cooler temperatures. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Here's my card.
I order takeout, use my card. And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR, but with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 4.98% APR with auto pay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 4.98% APR to 19.99% APR and include a 0.5% auto pay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/radio for more information.
Talk El Paso, airing weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, focused on local businesses, local politics, local impacts of the day's news. Brought to you in part by Thrive 915 Food Fest. Join the conversation Monday through Friday at 4, and let's talk El Paso.
The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. On all of those, you're welcome to tune in, chime in. One of the better ways you can do so throughout our broadcast here, 4 to 6 p.m. Got a lot of, the Skeptic Squad is alive and well, as it always is. Louis Pinato, John Brazelton, John Hertz, Leroy Chuck a little bit earlier commenting. So if you want to chime in over there, John Brazelton with his supposition that the U.S. gained nearly 5 million immigrants in 2021, both legal and illegal. They need to go to work. I am not sure that that is the correct number. The arrests at the border were about not quite 2 million, as is coming out. That ICE report still delayed, as far as I'm aware, which is concerning in its own right. But That is not quite the numbers being looked at, but they are sizable, I'll give you that, but for further discussion here. But we are joined here in studio by UTEP economic professor Tom Fullerton, author of the Border Region Barometer. The Borderplex Business Barometer is the current report you have right now. And again, that next one that'll be coming out at the printers right now, what is that one? Is that one scope?
That's called Borderplex Economic Outlook to 2023, and it is a regional economic forecast of Las Cruces, El Paso, Ciudad Juarez, and Chihuahua City.
And you look at a lot of those factors in the current report out right now that talks about, what are the factors being looked at in kind of a short term. This is a month-by-month report, so that's the kind of scope you're looking at. So there's a lot to be looked at for 2022 and what it'll mean through 2023. Talked a little bit about that in some of the articles that we've talked about from El Paso Inc. as well about what factors are. But there's been one fascinating one for me, and that is the not quite reshoring, just offshoring, I guess might be a better phrase for it, of major multinational manufacturers of goods wanting to essentially shorten their supply chain, given all of the issues that have come with that this past year. Again, we had me and Leroy Chuck having issues getting in basic parts for basic things because they're saying they're just not available because of the supply chain, because of, backlogs of getting things off boats and just everything, even component supplies. Looking to get closer to here, and the impact that would have on our region is one of the more, I don't want to say hopeful because it's not happening for necessarily a great reason, but it could have a big impact on our area.
That's correct. And there's several factors that are feeding into that development. One is, as you correctly point out, is that businesses have had to go from a just-in-time inventory management system to a just-in-case inventory management system. And to help that process, a lot of companies, they're not really closing down necessarily facilities overseas, but when it comes time to expand capacity, they are developing new capacity in Mexico. And of course, they probably should have been doing that all along. Back in 2001, 2002, the so-called China syndrome years, what was going on was, labor rates were very, very cheap in China, and their productivity rates were above those wage rates. Well, now, the cost of labor has gone up enormously in China. And all of a sudden, the wage to output ratio in Mexico is much more competitive. And so, the scales have been rebalanced, and now companies are looking at things in terms of, the effective bang for the buck, and Mexican labor productivity, fares very well internationally. So that has caused a lot of companies to take another look at Mexico. The other thing that's happened is that the USMCA agreement, has replaced NAFTA, and it has drawn sort of a line through the global hemispheric trade scenarios, and it has caused a north-south realignment of a lot of international manufacturing. And a lot of people are concerned that if the heavy hand of government didn't do a good job back in the 60s and 70s, why is it going to do a good job in the 2020s? We'll have to see. Some people are hopeful that, this time it'll work out better. But one of the outcomes has been that, we've got sort of a north-south realignment of hemispheric manufacturing capacity. And it's going on in Asia, too. A lot of things are realigning in favor of China over there. But that's happening as well. And so there's been some natural moves towards investing in Mexico, as well as some artificial stimulants in terms of the USMCA agreement.
One of the factors that you've got in your report here is a look at what has been the employment levels of export-focused manufacturing in Juarez. Essentially, what is being made there and the people employed to do so it's basically the maquila business is the kind of snapshot that you're taking of it here. And so looking over this is going over many past years, looking at the previous recession, and had been building up quite a bit. You see the dip right there at the right side of the graph for when it was 2020 and March and all of that, but it actually outpaced that even within the last year over that, and seen a little bit of more of a dip. But with those trends already being looked at, that was surprising to me that there was already such a strong trend even before USMCA got revamped from NAFTA essentially, and then the movement that I've seen, again, the articles we've already talked about of specific companies, a handful of them that are named specifically looking to, again, close reshore. So that is already pretty strong, with levels looking over 300,000 employment levels within that sector, just within Juarez itself, not even the overall of like Chihuahua or northern Mexico as a whole. So if that were to continue, and like you said, the economic forecast and what comes with it, if that continues strongly enough, what could that trend line end up looking like?
Well, it'll let's see, probably slow down a little bit. Maintaining the percentage rate of growth that has occurred in export-oriented manufacturing in northern Mexico is going to be difficult, simply because, like in the case of Ciudad Juarez, more than 300,000 people on those payrolls already. So, accelerating the growth rate is going to be difficult. Plus, it's going to entail a lot of domestic in-migration from other regions of Mexico. But the growth is going to be solid. As long as the U.S. economy remains on track, the demand for additional output and additional shift work at those factories is going to remain quite strong, which means, a couple of things. One is that the pressure on the bridges is still going to remain in place. And, over the course of the last 6 months, you really have to give a thumbs up to ICE and CBP. They've done a very good job of making sure that the type of traffic snarls that we observed after 9/11 did not rematerialize after we, lifted the non-essential travel restrictions. So, shout out to ICE and CBP for managing this situation so efficiently. The other thing that's going to happen is that the demands on warehousing capacity and transportation capacity on the north side of the Borderplex are going to remain firmly in place. And so all the industrial parks here in El Paso are going to be on their toes, and the demand for drivers with commercial licensing certifications is going to remain quite strong. All of the trucking companies here, if you talk to the executives and the managers, right now their biggest challenge is recruitment. In fact, in the United States, they're looking at lowering the entry-level age for commercially qualified drivers as a consequence of those pressures.
Yeah, from 21 in most places, if not federally, to 18 for the most part is what is being looked at.
Yes.
So Calvin Williams talking about a friend of his trucking job on the West Coast, might want to look at around here. So basically the problem that we're looking at to encapsulate what is going on within the maquila industry overall, the manufacturing and then the finishing or warehousing on this side, is that there might not be any more room to just expand within current facilities. They're going to have to build more, is what it comes down to.
They're going to have to build more, and they're going to have to recruit more. And we may start seeing supply chain issues, not due to output from the factories, but due to backups in terms of being able to handle everything that's coming through the ports here in El Paso. Hopefully we won't develop into a Long Beach, LA problem, but something like that may occur.
Absolutely. So speaking about having to build things, one of the other things that has hit home as I have considered becoming a homeowner has been the supply of homes and the prices on such. So that one of the other graphs that we've got up here from your report is the median housing pricing in El Paso, the blue line at the bottom 2020 and the red line 2021. So anyone who has owned a house, thought about owning a house, thought about selling their house. I don't even own a house, and I've been getting called by people saying, do I want to sell my house? And I tell them, hey, stop calling me. And if I had a longer, nicer conversation, I would tell them, I don't own a house, stop calling me. Because it has been serious. I mean, I was getting multiple calls a week at one point here. So that's a little microcosm. So that has been a seriously strong trend line. And that combined with the amount of supply chain issues, the difficulty in building new things, both from the literal supplies to do so, and then the labor force has been making this continue upwards with another strong bend towards the end of 2021 as you model there.
It has. There are indications that in Texas, the peak rates of price acceleration are behind us. And so hopefully that will be the case in 2022. And we can observe more buyer-friendly conditions. But for now, this has filtered over into the apartment market, and rental rates are going up very rapidly as well. The econometric projections, which are not quite being released yet, indicate that prices are going to keep growing, but at slower rates, and that rental rates are also going to keep going up, but at slower rates as well. However, in terms of forecast risks, if more supply chain disruptions occur, then the rates of growth that are being projected, both for median prices for resale housing and median prices for new housing, and apartment rental rates, those rates may end up not being not rising as rapidly as they should. And so, we got a lot of information in all those tables, and there may be areas where, we've stuck our necks out too far.
But you do this one monthly again as you're waiting on the next report. And that other graph we had up there, this being the kind of 15-year outlook of what the median pricing has been in El Paso. And you can see it was accelerating a little bit even as we were heading into these past couple of years, and then just kind of not quite skyrocketed, but it looks a little bit uncomfortably logarithmic almost there, exponential with its growth as it was. And so you see a little bit of a dip that has happened right at the tail end as we've gotten into here. So if it has, I will take it as personally beneficial information if we have seen a plateau, and will maybe not quite hold my breath and maybe look at getting those interest rates before too long. But yeah, we had seen a strong trend line, but the way it had been moved in the last couple of years, again, that kind of, from a certain standpoint, baffling. Everything is stopped, but people are ravenously buying homes. Once you delve into it, it makes a little bit more sense, but still just kind of a dichotomous situation as an absolute value.
True. And the other thing that's gone on is there have been a lot of companies that are purchasing houses, and they're driving prices up as well.
That is very true.
Because housing has become more of an investment asset than it used to be here in El Paso. And so we'll have to see what materializes in that regard. But for now, 2022 is looking like things might align a little bit better in terms of residential real estate.
Let's hope, because I could use that personally here. So these are all in reports that you have out now or are coming out shortly, including the more year-long perspective. If I get the emails, of course, but if people want to get more information on this, what's the best way for them to do so?
The easiest way to do it is to, go to the UTEP website and look up Border Region Modeling Project. There you can either download reports for free from the UTEP library, or companies and government agencies that need this information in terms of, the detailed outlook, they can purchase them. The purchase price for the Borderplex Economic Outlook to 2023 is $20. That's 18 tables of very detailed statistical information covering 263 econometric equations of regional economic activity from Las Cruces all the way down to Chihuahua City. If you can find a lower price econometric forecast for this region, go buy it. Otherwise, I think, we're about, the most affordable report in this regard anywhere in North America.
And I'll say, as a completely unprompted plug, you generally get what you pay for, so just consider that as well. Again, guest right now has been UTEP Professor of Economics, Tom Fullerton. Thank you very much for coming by to talk about some of the situations, occurrences, and forecasts as much as can be done through the near term, anyway, for what's going to be affecting us here in the borderland here in 2022.
Andrew, always enjoy participating with you and your listeners.
Absolutely. So we're going to take that next break right now. Coming out of that, we will go ahead and open up those phone lines as much as we can before we hit the top of the hour. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo. You can avoid the backup by exiting earlier at Trowbridge. I-10 westbound at Red. Injury accident there. You got a lot of slowing on the I-10 westbound between Wrestler all the way up to Thorne, and eastbound between Artcraft down to Thorne. It's slow with stop-and-go traffic on Artcraft, too, between Donovan and the 10. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's, The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
The MLK Tapes is your next true crime podcast obsession. On April 4th, 1968, a lone gunman assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee. At least, that's the official story. The MLK Tapes podcast explores recordings of eyewitness testimonies to reveal the real story of the plot to kill Dr. King.
James Earl Ray was a pawn for the official story.
Listen to the MLK Tapes wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Phil Swift here. When that next storm is barreling down, get prepared with the Flex Seal family of products. Floods can destroy your home. Push Flex base deep into cracks and holes to help prevent flooding. Seal doors and windows, patch leaky roofs and downspouts. Remember, when that storm is coming your way, keep your family safe and dry. Be prepared with the Flex Seal family of products. Available at FlexSealProducts.com and fine retailers.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Or buying a car is still fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at SunlandParkDodge.com. It's Thomas into a skin El Paso. El Paso strong. Increased factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. Also select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Need new hires in the new year? You need Indeed to help find your next hire. When you sponsor a post, you get a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, and a bunch of ways to interact with the show. We are short timing it before we hit the top of the hour here, but we'll squeeze in a call or two. Phone lines open now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Taking those calls on what we got going on here today. Again, thank you to our guest from the previous segment, UTEP Professor of Economics Tom Fullerton, on his Border Region Economic Modeling Project. The report out right now for the next month or so, based on the factors apparent right now. But the next report coming out, I have found it useful, maybe a little bit deep in the weeds, but it's been helpful for me, and I'm very hopeful, maybe against hope, about what's going to be happening with the housing market and things like that, if only for personal reasons. But hey, that's one of the useful ways it can be looked at. All of these factors, I mean, they looked at about a couple dozen in this monthly report and a whole lot more in their next one. I found it useful for myself engaging what may or may not be happening, or at least the factors I am watching as we move forward here, and a lot to be watched as part of this. So also want to remind you, I am going to be out at the Speed 5915 Speed Networking Business Mixer at 11135 Pelicano, which is the Mountain Star Brewing Company. I'll be giving the keynote speech out there at 7, so I'll basically be heading right here from the show on Thursday and headed out there. No admission to attend, but you patronize the business while you're out there, essentially. Food trucks, tacos el gams, and more going to be out there, along with Savagely Delicious. You can find the whole thing. We've shared posts over on our socials as well, so you can find it there. But just a lot of important things going on. Some interesting comments going on as well as part of this. One of the ways you can comment throughout the show here. Maria, comment on the housing issue. Say, companies buying properties for the federal government, many becoming Section 8 housing, part of the impetus to promote low-income suburban housing. There are incidents of builders completing subdivisions, then selling it to the government. Not sure if that's, I mean, I know that somehow Section 8 works, but I'm aware of others that are also then essentially putting up their properties as Section 8 housing because of the lesser but somewhat guaranteed income that comes from it. I'm not going to knock anyone's individual hustle, even if there have been some disturbing overall trends going on. Again, me getting called, I do not own a home, but they were calling me for whatever freaking reason to call and ask if I want to sell the home that I don't own. But Kevin Warren's also doing an allusion to another bane of my existence. Let me know that he got a text and they want to remind me that my car warranty is getting ready to expire. If there's ever a message we find on another planet, like carved into the rock, I'm expecting it to be that at this point, because good Lord, those are annoying. So again, thank you to our guests from the previous segment here. We're going to go into this next hour here, talk more about these factors and what you have to say. Again, we'll be opening up those phone lines. Open now, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Let's get into it, see what you have to say about what your perspective on our economic outlook and these factors going into it, the housing, the manufacturing, the importing, all of that. So coming back after this break, after the top of the hour news, we'll get to those calls and more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after the news at the top of the hour here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo. You can avoid the backup by exiting earlier at Trowbridge. I-10 westbound, a red injury accident there. You got a lot of slowing on the I-10 westbound between Wrestler all the way up to Thorne, and eastbound between Artcraft down to Thorne. It's slow with stop-and-go traffic on Artcraft, too, between Donovan and the 10. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com.
Titans go!
When the Teen Titans go to the movies, they know the best way to travel is safely.
Hollywood, here we come! Road trip! And you know it's super.
To keep your child safe, be sure to use the right car seat for their age and size.
Exactly. I know you're feeling. We're finally on the big screen. Have a seat, my dude.
For more information on finding the right seat, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Gotcha. That's a wise move.
It's an update. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There are things that go together that make mornings better. Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The website to order free at-home COVID tests from the government is in its testing phase. All orders submitted Tuesday are valid and will ship, but the Biden administration clarified the status of the site after it launched a day early. People whose address is connected to a business or live in housing with multiple units said they faced issues and were unable to complete their orders when the site became available. President Biden is praising agreements from Verizon and AT&T to delay deployment of 5G towers around key airports. Biden issued a statement saying the agreement will avoid devastating disruptions to passenger travel and the economy. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki spoke to reporters.
We're committed to reaching a solution around 5G deployment that maintains the highest level of safety while minimizing disruptions to passenger travel, cargo operations, and our economic recovery.
Stocks fell sharply in volatile trading on Wall Street. The Dow Jones lost 543 points to 35,368. Two British teens taken into custody as part of an investigation into the Texas synagogue terror attack are being released. Authorities in the UK were gathering information from them regarding hostage taker Malik Faisal Akram. The Greater Manchester Police said in a statement that their home was searched by the Counter-Terrorism Task Force. Apple is warning that antitrust bills being considered by the Senate would increase risk of security breaches in iPhones. Lisa Taylor has more.
That's according to a letter sent to lawmakers. The bills would force iPhones to allow sideloading when apps are downloaded outside the App Store. Apple's Senior Director of Government Affairs says the American Innovation and Choice Online Act and the Open App Markets Act put consumers in harm's way. Both are scheduled to be considered this week.
You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Governor Phil Murphy is paying tribute to firefighters who fought a massive fire in Passaic last Friday. Sarah Lee Kessler reports.
Murphy brought pizzas to Eastside Firehouse Monday, thanking firefighters for their heroism and bravery. They fought an 11-alarm fire that started at Majestic Industries and threatened the Qualco chemical plant that makes swimming pool supplies. Passaic's bravest, along with firefighters from 100 other Jersey towns, kept the fire from igniting chlorine pellets, which would have caused a chemical blast. Murphy praised the command system used to get enough boots on the ground to fight the fire.
A survivor of a terrorist attack on a Texas synagogue says active shooter training saved his life and the lives of the others being held hostage. Jeffrey Cohen was one of 4 members of the congregation Beth Israel, held for 11 hours at gunpoint by British national Malik Akram. Cohen explained that he lined himself up with one of the exits and gradually positioned other hostages in areas where they could escape. Microsoft is buying out a big name in the video game business. Rory O'Neill reports.
Microsoft will buy Activision Blizzard in an all-cash deal valued at $68.7 billion. Microsoft will use the company behind Call of Duty and Candy Crush to expand into mobile gaming and the metaverse. The takeover comes as Activision management has been fighting allegations of misconduct in the workplace. Activision has been making video games for more than 40 years, including classics like Pitfall, Rampage, and Commando.
A marine biologist in Australia is detailing her encounter with a rare octopus. Jacinta Shackleton saw the blanket octopus while she was snorkeling near Lady Elliot Island. Octopus lives near coral reefs in tropical ocean settings, with cape-like webs around its tentacles to intimidate predators. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bank. That's bank. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's new hot and crispy fries. Right now at Wendy's, see why everyone is raving about their brand new fries. Natural cut, skin on with a hint of sea salt, and guaranteed to be hot and crispy or they'll replace them. You know, the way fries should be. Try Wendy's guaranteed hot and crispy fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
The first school for blacks in El Paso had only 7 students and was opened in March 1883 in the home of John Smith. Andrew Morlock was both principal and teacher. The school was given the name of Douglas School in tribute to Frederick Douglass, a well-respected statesman and orator and one of the country's strongest abolitionists. 484 students graduated from the school until 1955, when black students were finally integrated into all El Paso schools. Some of the famous graduates of Douglass were actor Henry Thomas, who appeared in Gone with the Wind and Road to Zanzibar, William Roseborough of the Harlem Globetrotters, and Nolan Richardson of UTEP basketball fame.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Cañutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest for gifts and decor, Keystone Heritage Park, and Monterey Asset Management. It's the El Paso History Show, Saturday morning at 10, streaming live on Facebook and on News Radio 690.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Still considered the main one. It's where we are most consistently have been and continue to be, and where the Skeptic Squad lives for sure. It's the Thunderdome Comments with Maria Coleman, Calvin Williams, John Brazelton, Lou Pinato, and Leroy Chuck a little bit earlier, John Hurts towards the start of the show. So if you want to chime in over there, one of the better ways to do so throughout the program, but we do have that phone line open now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Yeah, let's talk about those issues we got going on here today, economics and economic destiny of our region, the focus here today, as we got some new modeling either out now or coming out, and the mixed bag that comes with it. If those, again, thank you to our guest from last hour, UTEP Professor of Economics, Tom Fullerton, if the trend line of housing plateauing at least continues, I will take that personally well, but a lot of issues to be looked at and broken some of them down, but we'll take your comments on your thoughts on what is the forecast here and what it looks like here. So we got a couple calls on the line here. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hi, this is Joe on the west side.
Hey there, Joe.
Hey, hi, Andrew. That was a great program with Dr. Fullerton. I really enjoyed it. Hey, but I wanted to say something that is important because I was there when NAFTA came around, and I was there in a position where I was promoting it to the community, and I worked in economic development. But one of the things that happened with NAFTA, and a lot of people don't know this because they weren't there back then, is that it changed our culture and our economic outlook very, very very drastically. I mean, I can remember when we used to drive to Juarez during my lunch hour and buy groceries and come back and make it in time.
Okay, yeah, that's different for sure.
You know, I remember going to Juarez to buy a pizza because we didn't have a pizza place here. But the fact of the matter is that economically, it changed Juarez drastically. As a matter of fact, it changed all the communities along the border drastically. I mean, it was very different. We would go to Juarez and visit our relatives over there and come back. You know, after NAFTA, you couldn't do that because of the traffic, because of the people. And he was right. One of the things that happened was that the maquiladoras, didn't have enough people here in Juarez to manufacture what they needed to manufacture. So they started bringing in people from the interior. As a matter of fact, they would send buses and bring the people back over here. So that changed the culture totally, you know. And the other thing that I wish would have had a chance to ask him is I would like to know how the thousands of U.S.-born young adults that reside in Juarez, how does that affect the employment statistics on this side of the border? And I'm saying that because a lot of these individuals are starting to work over here now that there's so many jobs available. The young people are coming over here and taking a lot of jobs. And you see them at the restaurants and stuff. A lot of them are from Juarez, which, you know, is okay with me. You know, I don't have a problem with. But I was wondering, statistically, how does that affect the unemployment rate here or the unemployment statistics here in this side of the border?
That is an interesting question. I might have to shoot him an email after we're done with the show here to say if there's any clarification on that, because we do have the respective rates on either side. We talked a little bit about some of the maquila employment specifically in Juarez, but the combination in there, you know, how it works in the balance, that is an interesting point to be made. I might have to ask him that myself here once we're done with the show.
Yeah, because the rate of pay an hour is very different here than it is over there. So a lot of young people would come over here and make work for McDonald's for $11-12 and make a lot more money than the people that are working in the plant.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense here. I've noted it down here. We'll have to get a follow-up from him and see what we can say about that. So thank you for the question. That's a very astute one.
Can I say something else?
Yeah, sure thing.
I was going to say that maybe this would, since NAFTA changed the history of the city, this community so much, maybe it should be part of the History Channel or the History program that you have on Saturdays.
Well, that is an interesting suggestion. And yeah, the currents from there, I mean, what you were talking about there at the start about the impact on our community and how it changed. I was out at the Fountains at Farah this weekend, and that is not just named that for the alliterative purposes. That used to be one of the major textile manufacturing plants, that site that then lay fallow for decades after the offshoring that happened as a result of NAFTA, and now has become that site productive again, but still it was a scar from that for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Well, no, never mind. I'll talk to you some other time.
No, that's all right. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Again, if you wanted to call in during the show, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have a couple more on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Oh, this is Daniel. How are you?
Hey there, Daniel. Doing all right. What's on your mind today?
Listen, there's a couple of things that really that I was puzzled with, and I look at. I have a bachelor's in business. That's it.
Okay.
But I have worked in material management before, and there's a couple of things that we don't look at, and that is we're looking at things from the supply end. The factories we have in Juarez are able to do this output and so forth. But we have two problems. We have finished goods laying in the harbors that cannot be moved. We also have parts that are for maquilas here or factories here that are used to produce capital goods, such as cars. All right. Right now, cars went up, 15-20%?
Oh,
cars?
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
As a result of that, what's going to happen is that the demand for those cars are going to be less. And as the demand gets less, so will the demand for parts that are going to be used to make those capital goods. So that will affect this side of the border. And as far as truck drivers and so forth that we need right now, yeah, we need right now. But that is because we have a bottleneck. If we have buckets, let's put it this way: we have a bucket that's way full over the top, over in the ports, and we got to move what's in those buckets to the factories, right? And we got to split them up all over the place so that we can smooth that out. Once we smooth that out, we no longer need all those trucks.
Basically, dealing with the excess, yeah.
What? Laid off trucks, number one. Number two, the companies that go out and buy all this equipment, which is very expensive, to move all these goods, are going to be broke because they're not going to be able to pay for the capital equipment that they purchased in order to move all those goods once we smooth it out. So that's something we've got to look at. And as far as the growth of El Paso, I've been here 35 years. I'm from California. So I've been here 35 years, and I love El Paso. And I've seen it grow like you would not believe. Now, El Paso has grown for several, as far as I know, it's grown because of, number one, education. The kids here went to college, most of them, and they were able to take jobs that were not here before because the community started growing because of two things. One, not so much what was going on in Juarez, but I think that we had a migration from Juarez here, a transfer of capital from Juarez to El Paso because of the problems they were having with there. Number one. Number two, the base.
Oh, yeah.
The base is going to be the biggest base in the world, from what I understand. That creates jobs that are on the side that require people that are trained in technical areas and so forth. And that's what we see here, that, the young kids now are buying houses, let's say on the east side or on the west side, far west or far east, that are $250,000 because they're making more money, because they're more educated. And we're seeing labor coming in from Juarez that the general was talking about, maybe that they're working in restaurants and so forth. Yeah, because our people, or the people that grew up here, don't necessarily need to do that. They're now cops, they're now teachers, they're now executives, they work for the city or the government, they're civil engineers and so forth. They're building the roads that we have. So that's what I think has happened. So right now, I would say that we need to worry, because what's going to happen is the products that are, say if I have a manufacturing plant in Juarez, right, and I'm making parts for, let's say, cars, or let's say TVs that are assembled here in the U.S. for A or B reason. Now, those parts that I purchased a while back are going to come in and they're going to sit in my warehouse. You know why? Because the manufacturers are going to start canceling orders, and that's going to create more inventory. And as it creates more inventory, it's going to take the capital that I have, and I'm not going to be able to hire people. You see? And so this is the problem that we now have. We have to look at things from the demand side, not from what we have available in the supply side. Granted, the supply is there. We're able to do things, but the problem we have is inflation, and that is going to be the death of us unless we stop it. And the way we stop it is by stop creating all this money and, turning out money and giving it away and not getting anything for it. That's the problem we have.
Oh, yeah. The inflation one and everything's going to come along with it has been not exactly the sleeper during this, because we've talked about it a decent amount. But, the impacts on that has been, we haven't even felt the brunt of them yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that was my point.
No, you got the good points there. So thank you very much for the points in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right. Take care of yourself.
You too as well. All right, you have a good evening there. All right, we are due for that next break right now. We'll talk more about this on this subject and take more calls coming out of it here, because there's a lot to get into. So that number to call, again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. More calls, more comments, all of that coming up after this break. Don't go anywhere. Coming back with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Geronimo. Injury accident is slowing traffic there. Route 375 westbound at Sergeant Major. Look for a large tractor trailer blocking the right shoulder. It's slow and go on the I-10 both directions. Eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne. Westbound between Wrestler up to Thorne. And we got a crash with injuries. George Dieter just north of Vista del Sol. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
Conquer your New Year's resolution to be more productive with the Before Breakfast podcast. In each bite-sized daily episode, time management and productivity expert Laura Vanderkam teaches you how to make the most of your time, both at work and at home. These are the practical suggestions you need to get more done with your day.
Just as lifting weights keeps our bodies strong as we age, learning new skills is the mental equivalent of pumping iron.
Listen to Before Breakfast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
When El Paso Children's Hospital first opened its doors in 2012, they forever changed pediatric healthcare in the region. More families stay in El Paso for specialty treatment instead of leaving town.
More children have access to pediatric specialists. 7 pediatric specialty clinics help achieve the best possible outcomes. And there's so much more to come. El Paso Children's Hospital, celebrating 10 years of pediatric specialty care in the region. 10 years of wonder.
Happy New Year, El Paso. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us have a record-breaking year. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering 0 down, 0 APR for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and exceptional trade-in offers for any trade.
Keep your cash and save thousands with record-breaking price cuts during the Start Something New sales event going on now at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. 2022 Ram trucks, huge selection, huge savings. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Charger, and Durango SUVs. Looking to save thousands on your next car, truck, or SUV? The all-new Southern Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We're buying a car. It's still fun at I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso, El Paso Strong. Increase factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A bunch of ways to interact with the program. Of course, we got that phone line open now through the end of the show, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, if you'd like to dial it that way. Same numbers either way. Just hit the right letters on your numbers, and you'll be good to go. Also have those comments coming in on the socials here. Calvin Williams going off a point made by some of our recent callers here. So hard to take a stand on government spending when you're not sure what you're still paying for that may not have any kind of cost benefit from years ago. This is why it's an important thing to keep up on, because frankly, either side calls out the other side when they say, oh no, you're spending wildly, and then when they're out of power saying, oh no, you can't spend anything. It gets frustrating, it gets old, and actually taking a comprehensive look at it, I think, is important. There's been some slight comments coming out of leadership of the Treasury Department, amongst other things, saying that they're worried about the national debt that may or may not have some effects going on it. There's some theories out there, including about that inflation could actually be used to pay it off more cheaply, even if it means that you and I take it in the shorts. Nothing official, an actual stance from the Treasury Department, but, I mean, these things, they are absolutely connected. That is undeniable and worth paying attention to, which is why we do when we have these conversations. So before the break, we had a caller, Daniel, talking about some of these things going on here. One of the aspects he's talking about is an emerging one, this concept of rebounding, or essentially that once something has moved in such a direction for such a while, that once it the force behind it is essentially lessened, the things that were then put in place along for it, such as extra truck drivers, extra staff, those kind of things. If then the demand wanes, we have been so focused on supply. I mean, that was our whole show yesterday. I take no shame in saying that. But if demand has been assumed to be more or less that constant, but there, welling up and more than can be held back by the supply currently. If that were to falter, it would actually probably do good things for inflation, as counterintuitive as that sounds, because if less people are wanting it, part of the reason we're seeing inflation go up is that even as costs of production have gone up, people still want it, or enough people are willing to still get it, housing, etc. So that is then making things more expensive as companies say, okay, sure, if even though it's that much more expensive, we'll still make it. That has been one factor going with it. Federal efforts, don't get me wrong, they're a part of it, but something we can see more specifically within our region is, movement on those kind of issues. So I guess I am hopeful, optimistic slightly, or at the very least looking closely at the factors about the trade, transport that comes through our area. So that's going to keep my eye on it. Though to one other point about good jobs in the area and people staying around, we still have a serious brain drain issue because we still aren't quite there there's more than there was. Do not get me wrong. A lot more of companies and enterprises, businesses starting that are able to then keep those that are graduating from our educational institutions in our area. But it's still not exactly, there's still a significant amount of brain drain. So if we can see a move on that, I think we'll be better off overall. But there's still a lot more going with it. Leroy Chuck with a decent plan here that may have more consequences of waiting for the housing market / economy to collapse in 2 to 3 years and then buy a bunch of property. I hope you have thought about all the aspects of that plan is what I'm saying. Yeah, it's tempting to say, oh, I'll just wait till it crashes and then buy something. What if it just continues on? Let's just say there's a phrase that I think about not often enough, but it comes up when we talk about things like this. The market can act irrationally longer than you can stay solvent. So sure, make plans, make your suppositions about what's going to happen going forward, but just remember that expectations are kind of best laid plans and all of that here. But we are taking those calls on the line again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. So you were talking about the economic futures that we envision. I see an economic system where a few plutocrats will continue to make much more money than they'll ever need, and many working Americans who will continue to just get by. 90% of the S&P 500 is owned by the top 10% of Americans, and 50% of Americans don't own any stock. And then the majority of the 50% who do own stocks have very small portfolios. Well, I see in America where 60% of Americans will continue to not be able to come up with $1,000 in case of an emergency without having to borrow the money or sell something. I see an economic system where the plutocrats will continue to invest money in robots to eliminate workers and lower their labor costs, and millions of Americans without work to do. I see an economy hobbled by the huge cleanup costs of anthropogenic global climate weirding and disasters and future pandemics. And last but not least, I see an economic system where the plutocrats will continue to purchase the best politicians money can buy. Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot to be said there, and money in politics is always a touchy subject. But I think it was actually put best by a commenter, Dan Morales, yesterday about the concerns about that labor force changeover, where they'll go fully robotic. Probably happen at some point, but for most businesses, including national ones at this point, it's kind of a, what do we invest in? What makes sense to do? Because it's going to cost probably about the same to get people either hired or innovate and do the automation. But the automation comes with a lot further costs, a lot of unseen ones. It's not going to be talk about a lot, frankly, just a switch being flipped, being, okay, we're automated today. It's going to be probably a rough process. I don't know if you've ever anyone out there has used those touch screens, even the automated ordering systems at some of the local fast food places I can think of that have implemented. They're buggy as hell. Like half the time it does not do what you expect it to. So sure, I think it's probably coming before too long, but I think in the short term, in the near term, in the foreseeable-ish future, probably going to be continuing apace, unless it just is truly a falling out of the bottom of the labor market and it's just not being willing. I see enough individual, particularly franchised and or local and small businesses willing to be able to say, yes, I think we figured out a way we can justify being able to bring on people for the rate that we need to be able to keep them and still make the bottom line work that more feasible in the short term. But yeah, Leroy Chuck saying it's hard to take people seriously when everything is a crisis. There's actually a book that I just got in that I'll might interject into here of Living in the Long Emergency, a follow-up to a previous one of Forecasting the Long Emergency. But yeah, I mean, I don't think climate change is a divisive topic, I will say, but I think there are certain things, regardless of whatever you might think the causes are, of impacts coming from it that are prudent to at least consider what that might mean, at the very least, here locally. Coming up in the need for a next break here right now. Again, taking those calls through the end of the hour here as we're rounding the bend towards the bottom of the hour of our up to 6 o'clock. So again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Get into that and a whole lot more coming up after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. You're listening to Talk El Paso. Don't go anywhere.
Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. People continue to get infected with the Omicron variant in the borderland and across the country. Now, one of the country's top health officials hopes this variant could lead to the end of the pandemic. The word pandemic has been part of our daily lives since March 2020. The Omicron variant is quickly spreading, not only in the borderland, but all over the country and the world. CNN is now reporting the nation's leading disease doctor believes the rapidly spreading variant could have the COVID-19 pandemic turn into an endemic, which is when a disease is regularly found in a population but doesn't affect a large number of people or disrupt society as typically seen in a pandemic. Hospitalizations and deaths in El Paso are not as severe as they were when city officials reported similar numbers at the beginning of the pandemic. Both Dr. Fauci and local health authority Dr. Hector Ocaranza still caution about possible new COVID-19 variants that could come. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got a crash on the Artcraft on-ramp eastbound to the I-10. Another report of a crash just west of that Artcraft Road between West Side Drive and Upper Valley. I-10 eastbound is slow and go from Artcraft down to Thorne and heavy from Wrestler to Thorne on I-10 westbound. Loop 375 between the Gateway up to Pelicano, both directions, north and south, heavy traffic with delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We'll be in and out of some clouds over the next few days, along with increasing winds and temperatures remaining in the 60s. We'll talk about breezy to windy weather for your Tuesday, plus a change in the pattern that brings rain and cooler temperatures. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
For my small bookstore to thrive, I can't just sell books. So I created a radio ad at iHeartAdBuilder.com to tell everyone about our author events, our story hours for kids, and our amazing lattes. Now we're busier than ever. I'd call that a success story.
A custom radio ad from iHeart Ad Builder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Right now at Wendy's, see why everyone is raving about their brand new fries. Natural cut, skin on with a hint of sea salt, and guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or they'll replace them. You know, the way fries should be. Try Wendy's guaranteed hot and crispy fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's new hot and crispy fries.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Taking those comments throughout the program, one of the better ways to do so if you want to chime in. We see them all. And particularly if you're going to join it over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's the Thunderdome of comments, usually here, with the Skeptic Squad out in force today. Leroy Chuck, Calvin Williams, Maria Kalman, John Brazelton looping out a little bit earlier, and more. So if you wanted to chime in, more than welcome to. And do have the phone lines open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got to put the 915 at the start of it because that's just how things work in the area these days. So calling in the middle of the segment or on hold right now, just stay there. We'll get to you here shortly, but we do have some calls on the line here already. Right now, we do have Andrew on the west side here with us. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things I wanted to add to your guest speaker's comments, with everything going up in price, one thing that has not gone up is salaries, if people have noticed that.
Oh, I've noticed it personally, yes, but continue, please.
Yes, and then yes, it's costing more to buy things, but yet there's no increase. And now one increase that we've seen is a 5% in Social Security cost of living. But then if you notice the cost of Medicare went up 15%.
I'd not seen that one, but yeah, that's significant.
Yes, healthcare. Now, I just wanted to comment on what that Rule character was talking about. He mentions plutocrats. Well, some of the biggest plutocrats in the United States are supporters of the Democratic Party. And then you've got, let's turn now to the oligarchs. One of them, Nancy Pelosi, it was just announced that her net worth is over $250 million. She just made about $30 million in a stock transaction recently. And these are the people that are making money, their salaries of $180,000 at taxpayer expense. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, there have been some ethics stuff and some laws that have been put forth, but essentially when it comes down to it, effectively, Congress does not have insider trading laws stopping them. And
that's correct.
I mean, it's frustrating as hell because, yeah, you or I do that. If I was to, I mean, I don't hold any stock that I'm aware of anyway, but if I did and I held, like, say, iHeartRadio stock, I could go to prison with Martha Stewart if I did some things very wrong. So, but that does not hold for that. And yeah, anyone getting that rich out of public office raises questions at best.
Yes, if you and I were to do it, the Securities and Exchange Commission would right now be filing a complaint with the Justice Department, and we'd be facing a federal indictment.
Oh, yeah, the SEC does not play nice with that unless, of course, well, you're in Congress. But, yeah, it's frustrating, and even though there has been some stuff passed, it hasn't been a well-done affair is what it comes down to.
That's true. Well, like I said, I'm not an economic expert. My studies in economics was very, very limited in college. But anyway, I digress, and you all have a good evening.
No, thank you very much for the points and the call there. Do appreciate it. I mean, yeah, it is frustrating that, and also the fact that they don't have to take the health care that they make everyone else take. In a general, the premise I would say that would solve a lot of this for me is if there would be, besides campaign finance, if I wave a magic legal wand and get it done, would be that any law passed by Congress must immediately and irrevocably apply to all congressional members and senators. That's something I'm just saying that I would do. All right, taking more calls on the line again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Jerry.
Hey there, Jerry. What's on your mind?
Hey, why don't we add that also to the staff of the congressmen and the senators? They seem to be coming out pretty good, too.
Fair enough. Good. Yep, I'll take that point fairly, yes.
Okay. One of the things that we're overlooking in this area is the space exploration and the flight thing going on right now.
That is true.
If I'm interested in having some of the college around here start assisting with people trying to train them in things that relate to that. For example, radio and electronics, if they can get into it, I don't know what they have right now at UTEP or Western Tech or anything like that. I know Western Tech has some, but I don't know how deep they go into it. And also dealing with heat shields and the structure of the vehicles, training on that and development of new jobs producing that stuff in the area might help with our job situation.
I think it's a fair
one more.
Sure, go ahead.
One more thing with Raul, if the Democrats will stop trying to raise the minimum wage and get out of that business of trying to control everything, maybe we won't lose our jobs to the robots. Thank you, and I'll let you go.
No, I appreciate the thought and the comment there. I will say that if you recall last year, we did have on UTEP President Heather Wilson talking about, maybe not programmatically as this is the space development program, but they have had a decent number of graduates specifically involved with Blue Origin, but given the proximity here, I am sure also with the Spaceport America operations. But I take your point as, let's get a bit more of a pipeline going, making more of it a specific and probably, industry responsive program as well. Think that could be something worked on. Yeah, if it starts getting down to community college and Western Tech, Southwest University, etc., focus on that as well. I think that could be good. So I wouldn't say that necessarily that is being ignored by, say, again, our guest from previous hour, UTEP economics professor Tom Fullerton. That is still just kind of an emergent thing. But once it starts hitting, it will probably start hitting significantly. What I want to say out of the actual launch that happened out of Spaceport America with Virgin Galactic, that it ended up being one stat that stuck with me, just what was being paid because of use of the facilities, I guess, out of that launch to Doña Ana County, because that is technically where it's located, end up being low six figures. So you may also call that onerous regulation. I wouldn't necessarily argue with you, but just as a microcosm, a very narrow example of the impact that any activity there can have, and if it starts happening regularly, we're probably not going to be seeing anything that's happening, out of Canaveral, Boca Chica, etc. But there is industrial applications that I think could probably be happening. Microsatellites, manufacturing, those kind of aspects could start happening here. It's developing. I hold out hope that it is coming. I don't know why I tend to be so much more optimistic about this kind of stuff than I am in anything else in my personal life, but it's exciting to me. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. So a little bit too early to put into month by month or year by year forecast at this point, but I'm keeping my eye on it. Point well taken here. I got time for at least one more here before we hit that next break. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Ben on the east side.
Hey there, Ben. What's on your mind?
You had a guest on earlier and everything, and he talked about the USMCA and as being a bright spot for El Paso and the United States, and the ICE being a bright spot, and the Border Patrol, of course. And it seems like he was lauding that they're really good for the United States. Well, who was against the USMCA being passed?
I remember there being some discussion at the time, but I think essentially what he was talking about coming down to is that it has further accelerated an already existing, but now programmatically happening, north-south realignment happening. There were plenty of people discussing at the time, at the very least, some of them, because it was essentially a Trump administration era policy that had some of that kind of friction happening there. Yeah.
And who wants to abolish ICE?
I think we all know the answer to that question. Yeah. This is why we talk about things locally, and I want to here, because there's a whole lot of rhetoric that happens nationally that when you bring it down to our level, it starts acting different. So, yeah, I get the point that you're getting at here, that there was a lot of friction, particularly from the left, on some of these policies and features that we're seeing. The private-public partnership, there's literally been a private-public partnership between industry, local governments here in El Paso, and CBP for probably better part of a decade now, or more than a decade now that I actually think about it, in order to streamline trade and travel within our region. So when we talk about these things, those are literally important local impacts that happen from local government involvement with these major federal problems and programs that end up having other problems when being discussed only through the national lens.
Yeah, and my final comment is there's a lot of bad Republicans that are in Congress and the administration, but there are a lot. The worst of them is not the worst of the Democratic Party. You can look at the Republicans have a lot of bad things, but the Democratic Party far, far, far worse.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you for the comments on the call here. I have talked a bit about things such as, term limits and having issues with the way it's been talking about implemented. I want to make it clear, I find the phrase career politician to be something that should be considered an oxymoron, because the fact of it, just someone sitting in there and in office just constantly, the one that always comes to my mind is Strom Thurmond, even though I was not really paying attention to politics during his active period, shall we say. But still, the fact that that kind of thing can happen is a little weird and probably wrong. So anyone just getting to sit in office because they have managed to finagle their local politics, because really all politics is local. It just happens to be, amalgamated on a large scale. But it's also part of the problem that everyone hates Congress. Everyone in general, not referring to anyone specifically, loves their congressperson. Electorates, anyway. That's the way they generally act if they're actually going out and voting, which is our own issue. It's more systematic than that then, because, Congress is about as popular as it is difficult to find a COVID test anywhere in the area, but still people don't generally vote out their own. We'll see what happens out of these redistricting and realignments that have happened, but in the meantime, hold the people that you vote for accountable. And what I mean by that is make sure that you know what their platform and policies are, which is why it's always what I look at, and then make sure they're actually doing things about it. There has been way, way, way too much of, on both sides, frankly, oh no, this was an important issue. We tried so hard, but we weren't quite able to get it done this time, so you totally got to vote for us again next time. Or more commonly, actually, and because I get so many of these emails, because I'm on so many mailing lists and I've signed up for so much stuff that I kind of regret in the long term, but it's what I do, so I got to live with it, of the campaign funding, saying, oh, we are so close to dealing with this issue, so you totally should donate this much money right now. I'm on so many lists for that. I get so much of it that I'm able to track trends and how they talk about it, and that is another more common way it happens even outside of the ballot box, because even if you're only getting people excited to go and vote for them, that's only ever, Congress, 2 years. There's a lot of laxity of attention that can happen in between those periods, so they want to keep people engaged, and donations and the way that, we're working so hard on this issue, it's another way to do it. That's what I'm saying. Keep the people that you vote for accountable in any way you can. Not saying you need to go to every town hall, beat down the door of their office, but let them know, particularly if you're in that class that is donating or the groups that are, make sure that they know, because if you're donating, they'll probably pay a little bit more attention. The whole money in politics thing, that's where it comes into being an issue, but that's the system we got to live with. If you want to change it, got to deal with it as it is. We're going to take that next break right now, coming to close out the hour. So if you wanted to comment or call in, we'll squeeze in what we can next segment. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, also YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing from an accident I-10 eastbound at Artcraft on-ramp to the I-10. I-10 westbound at Airway Boulevard exit. Another accident there with police on the scene. Loop 375 is slow between Gateway and Pelicano, both directions. And I-10 eastbound at Horizon, that's exit 37. Disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The Just for Pros event is back at Lowe's, and they're celebrating hardworking pros with special savings on the top tools, plus bonus perks to help you with your business. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Valid 117 to 128, U.S. only.
An unmitigated disaster at our southern border, and you will pay the full price. This is a full-blown crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a national security crisis. It is a health and safety for you and your family crisis.
Joe Biden's weak border policies have made America and Texas less safe. Take it from Brandon Judd, president of the National Border Patrol Council.
Joe Biden refuses to secure our southern border. He's crippled law enforcement and emboldened dangerous drug cartels, criminals, and human traffickers. That's why the National Border Patrol Council is proud to endorse Governor Greg Abbott for re-election. He deployed new resources to assist law enforcement, and he's cracked down on criminal activity. No other governor has done more to secure our border than Greg Abbott.
Vote on March 1st. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Hi, Phil Swift here for the Flex Seal family of products. You know, there's a lot of ways to protect your home. You could dig a moat. You could bubble wrap it. Or you could train a pack of wolves to protect it. But the best way is with the Flex Seal family of products. So when you need to patch, bond, seal, repair, and stop leaks fast, get the Flex Seal family of products. Available at FlexSealProducts.com and fine retailers.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of ways that you can participate in the program, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Tune in over there. Chime in if you want to. Leave your comments. Plus, we do take those calls. Squeeze in one more here if you want to. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Also do have those pound 250 calls. Taking some of those here. If that's one of the better ways to leave us a comment or a question outside of the program, because you can dial that on your cell phone. It has to be a cell phone because it's a digital call. So dial pound 250, all of those four symbols. Then say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and you can leave us a message, particularly as we're coming into our next program here at this point. Message for next time. We'll play it back usually around this time during the show here towards the end. So kind of your way your foot in the door. If you're into that kind of thing, we have some that call in that way. You're more than welcome to do so as well. So all the other things we got coming up for you here this week, going to be talking with the Child Guidance Center of El Paso about what is going on essentially behind the scenes. It's not hidden, but it's real hard to see unless you either have a child in your life or know someone who does, or involved in these issues of what is going on with mental health, particularly for the youth in the country and in our region, most specifically from organizations, a main one that is involved in it. So we're going to be talking with them coming up a little bit later this week. Also, just to continue plug and push out there, going to be out at the Mountain Star Brewing on Pelicano, going to be just off of Loma Land. Going to be talking about business here in El Paso. It's one of those events that I love going to. We got their promos on air because we are partnered with them, Thrive 915 events, to talk about what's going on with local businesses. We made some partnerships out there talking with them and just getting the gauge of what's going on here. So thank you to Dan Morales, organizer and founder of that page and those groups out there on last week. And we'll talk more about that as we're getting closer to it. But I'm going to be giving the keynote speech there on Thursday. Basically, I'm going to get off the show that day and head straight over there to take part. No charge to attend this one. They do ask that you patronize the business and the vendors that are going to be out there because they help support more talk about the issues going on in our region, which I might just be ever so slightly in favor of. Most specifically, I'll be talking about what is going on with businesses in our area and the entrepreneurial spirit, even as it applies to things like this. So if you want to come out, you are more than welcome to as well. So getting up close to the end of our show, a couple of the things that I'm looking at here is the developing, I know it's kind of always in the back of my mind, but as we are now in the new year and creeping closer to what may or may not be going on with cannabis in New Mexico, it's always in the back of my mind. And as more concrete developments come in, particularly the law enforcement response in this area, I am very interested to see what programmatically will be or not being done in our area. So those are some of the topics we're also keeping an eye on, also looking at the trade, travel, all of the aspects that affect us here in the borderland. And we do appreciate, actually, we have had some suggestions, including the upcoming one, for guests on the show. So if you're ever wanting us to talk a bit more about subjects, take it for the El Paso History Radio show, as you heard a little bit earlier in the program. But we do take interest and input here. So best way to do that is by emailing me over at Andrew Polk at iHeartMedia.com. Because, hey, if it's important to you, it's probably important to me and us in dealing with it here in the borderland. So we'll continue doing that 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. In the meantime, I have been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you so much for everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. I know that economics doesn't necessarily set everyone's hair or heart on fire either way, but I think it's important setting the table of what is the factors that's going to affect us going forward. So everyone who did tune in with us this whole time, you are more than welcome to do so, and thank you for doing so. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the streets. And as always, have a good evening. We will see you all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing from an accident I-10 eastbound at Artcraft on-ramp to the I-10. I-10 westbound at Airway Boulevard exit. Another accident there with police on the scene. Loop 375 is slow between Gateway and Pelicano, both directions. And I-10 eastbound at Horizon, that's exit 37. Disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just made up to $30 million in stock trading on big tech companies like Google. And these are the very same companies she oversees in Congress. After decades in public service, Pelosi has a net worth of up to $250 million. Now, Grant Stinchfield is on Newsmax exposing Pelosi and her hypocrisy. Watch Stinchfield tonight. You'll be shocked by what you find out and how much Congress is making on your dime. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern to Stinchfield on Newsmax, America's fastest-growing cable news channel. America trusts Newsmax for the real news you can't find anywhere else. Get Newsmax